Man.
Morning.
Morning, bro.
Welcome back.
Thanks, man. Back in GR.
Both you welcome back and welcome back to the podcast.
Welcome back, listeners. And listeners, welcome back me, please.
Yeah. Everyone give me a welcome. Drop a welcome back in the comments.
In chat.
Yeah. In our Discord channel. It's sleeting outside currently.
It's a nasty one today.
Brutal.
But today is the day the Lord has made.
Amen.
So I will rejoice.
And be glad in it.
I just want to sing a song about it, but I won't.
Sing me.
Dude, we need to pour right now.
Bat.
How was your weekend, man?
It's good. It was restful. I'm always concerned about pouring over the little like spill guard in there. For my OCD always takes it out.
Yeah, I don't like doing anything.
I just sent it on mine.
Well, yeah, it's really doesn't matter because it's gonna come back through it again. but
Exactly.
I'm
That's
the
why
same
it's
way.
funny. Like
I'm
it
the
doesn't
same
make
way.
sense.
I'm the same way.
Go get a mug, Joel.
Yeah, what are you doing, dog? He's working on focus. That's fair. That's noble.
Slide me. Woo. Should I spill it like we did in the first episode, season 2?
If you want to clean it,
Yeet. You are good, sir.
could you grab us a paper towel? Thank you.
Pepe towel.
Bye, Chemex.
Bye.
Good. What'd you do? You just hung out?
So actually,
Actually, what? It's a slow.
I can't do two things at once.
It's a slow start this morning, guys.
Actually, we had a funeral on Saturday for my cousin.
Right.
Which was actually really nice. It was a nice service, and I shot video for it, which is cool. I'm gonna jump into that edit this week. So that was Saturday. So I really didn't get to. I mean, that was actual work on Saturday for a good majority of the day, good half of the day. And it was really awesome just to love on family, and we had some family from out of town come up, and it was really awesome to see them because we don't get to see them very often. So that was good, but I knew that going into Saturday, that Saturday was going to be like that. And so I played at Berkeley yesterday, but then after that, I was kind of dedicating to just like rest and do nothing. So I actually drove out to Grand Haven yesterday after church. It was a nice sunny drive. It was the clear opposite of the weather that's currently happening.
It was beautiful yesterday.
It was gorgeous yesterday. And I went to Oddside. I don't know if you've been there. It's Oddside Ales. It's like a brewery bar over there, but they have it's like an artesian coffee bar. And so I just like sat and read. I finished God Has a Name by
Nice.
John Mark yesterday. So I'm caught up on my reading. Now I can jump into the next one.
Good.
So it was cool just to like sit in a coffee shop and the sun was coming in, and I eventually got too hot and I had to move tables. There were people behind me.
You were
Like
baking.
a column of like, there was like the wall and then window and then floor to ceiling wall throughout the whole section of this building. And I initially was like, I want to sit in the sun. So I picked the table right next to the window. And then I was like sweating like 20 minutes later. And there was a couple behind me, which I don't know. And there was a couple behind me that came in and they had like a baby, like almost like a newborn. And I was like, you guys sit in the shade. In my head, that's what I was thinking. And then they left and I was like, I'm taking your spot.
Move over, newborn.
Yeah, move over.
You guys got any room over there for me?
Yeah, right. Can I join you guys? I just want to read.
That sounds relaxing.
So I did that and then prepped for the podcast after I got home. So
Nice, dude.
yeah. Nate just got back from a sabbatical.
Yeah. Sabbatical is an interesting word.
That was more of a joke than actual truth. I mean, I'm sure there are some parts that were like, oh, we're away now. But.
Yeah, it was a road trip for sure. We took our van we've been building. So I took 2 weeks off, and Monday, Tuesday of the first part of it, I worked on finishing like building the van, the bed frame. We built like a table, and just like bare bones to get it comfortable. We put like I don't even know what it would be called. Like it's kind of like a sub roof, like a sub ceiling, where we're gonna like actually nail our like planking to it, and then we insulated that. Finished like the engine cover, just things that basically were like, okay, if we were to use this on Wednesday, which we did, what do we want to prioritize exactly? So
it's great.
Made it happen.
Didn't have any other fires.
No more fires. Slept about like 4 hours Monday and Tuesday.
And really, this whole van build is for the dog.
Yeah,
it's not for you guys.
You should see some pictures of Storm. Like there's a video of us driving down to Asheville. We went to Asheville. But it's like Amanda and I in the front seat, and then she put the phone in the back, and Storm's just laid out as far as she could, just cached in the back on our bed. She had a lot of space and had a good time too. But so we ended up driving to Asheville area, did some hiking, stayed at a few Airbnbs.
Stayed at some sweet Airbnbs.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was like pretty fast paced because of like we got there a little bit later than we wanted to, so we didn't I feel like the shipping container one that we were at was really cool, but like we didn't stay there that long. We got there at like 8 and left at like noon the next day.
Sure. It's kind of like one place to the next.
Yeah, it was pretty fast paced, but we did some hiking, brought door panels, finished drilling them into the doors while we were at that Airbnb.
Nice.
And then we spent the day hiking. It was pretty cold when we got down there. Stayed with my buddy Ben DeVries, who moved to Asheville for work, who's from Grand Rapids. And we stayed with him for 2 nights. Got a shower, which was nice after like 3 days. And he showed us around downtown Asheville, and which was pretty cool. It's kind of similar to Grand Rapids, actually, and it's a very artistic town.
Cool.
They claim it's Beer City Asheville, which is hilarious, because like Grand Rapids, Beer City,
right?
USA or whatever.
We're number one.
Yeah, so they have like tons of breweries. They have tons of coffee shops. There was this place, like, it was like the River Art District, and there was like, it was kind of interesting because like the artistic thing down there was like really grungy, like artistic, like it was
punk.
like steampunk. It was a little punk, yeah. So like we went to this place called Summit Coffee. It was really cool, but like it looked like it was in an abandoned warehouse, and then you walked in and it was like kind of cool.
Nice.
So like the outside, it was like a warehouse park.
Yeah, that's sweet.
So yeah, it was kind of like steampunky, a little grungy.
That almost rhymes.
Yeah, it was cool though. It was just interesting, the differences. Really cool town, and really beautiful. So we sight saw there, and then we stayed at a farm for 2 nights outside of Asheville.
Cool. Yeah.
And like parked. It was basically at the bottom of like a mountain, and
it's a big river in the back.
Yeah,
super cool.
We stayed there for 2 nights, and that was kind of more relaxing. It was more private. A lot of the hikes we were going to do as well, there was like seasonal road closures, so we like had to park by where the road was closed, and then like couldn't really get to the hikes, so we just hiked the roads or like the areas around it.
Sure.
Kind of just made our own hikes, which was fine.
Kind of fun. Still an adventure.
It was a little bit like, well, what do you want to do? Like the thing that's closed, you just walk up the road.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
So that was cool. Storm had a good time. Amanda and I had a good time. It was definitely tiring as well because we did a lot of hiking, a lot of
physical
driving.
exercise. Yeah.
Yeah, we drove. It's like a 12-hour drive, and then the van, you know. And then when you get there with the van, like it's not like when you drive to a hotel and you just like have one suitcase. It's like, all right, let's unpack the campfire stuff. Let's unpack the food stuff.
You're doing all the pieces that you normally
it's like
don't
camping,
really have to.
Kinda.
Yeah.
It's like we got to get ice for our cooler. Go get like stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, it was a really good maiden voyage. But definitely was challenging in a lot of ways. And then we went to Charlotte, saw Colony House there. I'm wearing one of their shirts.
Yeah.
Which was sick. They're always amazing live, and like kind of honestly inspired me again about music. I feel like lately I've been a little bit like blah. And just hearing live music again. It's been so long since I've been to a show.
I was gonna ask you because you were texting Josh and I, but what was the last concert that you went to? It was like a band.
Dude, I don't know. It's been a while.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
it's been
before
like 3
COVID.
years. Yeah, probably before COVID.
Yeah. Because Josh and I saw John Mayer in Austin last year.
Yeah.
And Josh is going to a bunch of concerts.
Yeah,
saw the 75.
It's kind of interesting because like I work on so much music, but it's at my computer through like studio monitors and at like a low volume. You know what I mean?
This is tranquil experience.
Yeah. Well, and then you go to like a rock show,
Get your face blown off.
Yeah. So, that was
it's that like visceral. I mean, that's why people like live music.
Yeah.
It's that visceral. It's in your face. You feel the subs. Like
yeah, and like Colony House is one of those bands that like their music is actually better live than it is like in the recording, which is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, most times you like go to a show and it's like, oh, the recording was like maybe like more full or something.
You're like listening to the recording as they're playing a song, and you're like, oh, it's kind of subpar.
And then you go to Colony House and you're like, I don't want to ever hear the recording again. I just want to hear them play this version.
This was tracked.
Yeah. Which is, I think what live music was all about. And it's inspiring to like play music again and like write. And so I restrung my guitars when I got home and like kind of started just like getting my house in order in that way. I feel like it's been, I've been like working a lot. And I think it just inspired me to play a little bit more and like and I'm still in the process of this. It wasn't just like, oh, sweet, I'm back at that. It's like more just like, okay, like maybe I need to like make sure I enjoy playing my guitars. Put new strings on. I'm like, oh, that's what a guitar could sound like when you have new strings. Like you forget, you know, what new strings do or feel like, or like maintaining it and stuff.
Right.
So I did that. It was good. Anyways, after the show, Colony House, our van broke down.
Yeah.
Which was
big thumbs down.
Yeah. Well, big bummer. We were in Charlotte. Luckily, we were going like pretty slow. It wasn't the engine. It was a suspension piece that fell off. And which kind of like felt like we blew a tire and front right. So that's like steering. So basically our steering was detached from a front right tire.
Undrivable.
But we were going slow and I was able to get it over to the shoulder, called AAA and got it to a place. So we ended up booking an extra night at our Airbnb, renting a one-way car from Charlotte to Grand Rapids to get home. And then I got to fly back at some point in the next couple weeks and pick up the van and drive that back after it's repaired. So big bummer, especially on the finances. It's going to be like probably $2,000 to $3,000 for this issue. So,
but like we were talking about, happened at the end of your trip.
Yeah.
After, were you guys literally just on your way back after that night?
After the show.
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes after the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the van made it through like all these mountain roads and like
you were like pushing it.
Yeah. But there was no issues. It was like kind of bizarre because it was like these mountain roads, like bumpy and stuff. And it was fine. And then we're driving like on this nice road in Charlotte going 15 and it happens, which I feel like is like protection from the Lord, because if we were up on a mountain hill, like how long does it take AAA to get there? How far is the tow?
Right.
Where we take it? Like we were
hours.
We were literally a mile from our Airbnb.
Yeah.
So
great.
We could have walked in 10 minutes if we needed to. The tow driver gave us a ride, but we weren't 2 hours into the mountains like we had been some of those other days. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of getting back home, getting settled in, like unpacking. Like since we left so quickly after building the van, our house was full of like building supplies. Like basically I got home from my uncle's, unloaded the van with all this wood and like materials and stuff like that into our living room on like sawhorses. And then we loaded in like all of the stuff that Amanda had gotten ready for our trip and left immediately.
Oh my gosh.
To go to Indianapolis and then down to Asheville.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like whirlwind. So we got home, like got everything put away, and like Amanda starts her job today. So kind of just like trying to exhale.
Back into the swing of things.
Yeah. So it's a little bit like that weird like tired but ready to work again kind of feeling.
You're refreshed from being gone away from the normal work. Would you say that the trip was inherently restful? Could that be a word to describe the trip, or not so much? Or maybe restful in a certain way.
Yeah, I think it was that's an interesting question. I don't know.
Did you read it, Elimination Hurry?
I forgot it at home. So I didn't read anything. And I don't know, like,
just giving you a hard time.
No, I know. I don't know if it was restful. I think like there was so much buildup in terms of like rushing to finish the van and then like tweaking it while we were gone and like, figuring out how to do that sort of like trip
for sure.
And having our puppy.
Yeah, right.
Like
all of
having to keep them entertained.
Variables.
Yeah. So
it like you said, like it was the main voyage. Like this was the first time to do that, and I feel like anyone would kind of be scrambling a little bit to tie everything together.
I think there was rest. I don't think like it's not the same experience as like going to the beach and like beach bumming it for 4 days,
Being a potato.
But it was adventurous, and there was we made a lot of memories. We shot film photos while we were there.
Yeah. Still a very memorable trip.
Yeah, I think it was good. And I mean, we learned a lot about like, this was kind of like our first big vacation since our honeymoon. For Amanda and I, and it was a unique trip. So I don't know. There was a lot of like new first experiences, and like I had a great time with Amanda. I don't know. Like there were times that it was definitely restful, but it was like camping kind of rest, where like you got to work to like rest.
Yeah, for sure.
It wasn't like luxury,
Well, it's also like that. Ben, even through reading God Has a Name and all of that stuff, and kind of continuously unpacking the garden story, like in Genesis, like how much man is kind of tied into like nature, like being in the mountains, all of that, going on hikes, as much as it might be physically draining or work. I know for me at least, like that's super restful to be out in nature, especially places that I haven't been before.
Yeah.
And to see the grandioseness of like rushing water over a river or mountains or wherever is really powerful. Both like being like, wow, but also like spiritually like powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And it was gorgeous. Asheville's a beautiful place. The mountains there are stunning. I think we want to go back when there's more leaves on the trees too, because it was like a little barren at
Kinda
times.
dead. Yeah.
But you can see further and stuff like that. So it's kind of like trade-offs.
What was the draw to Asheville in the first place?
Well, we were kind of like just figuring out where we wanted to go to begin with, and like we were looking at the whole nation.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of were like, okay, where can we go that's like significantly warmer than Grand Rapids, but not like 24 hours away?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
that's like either a day of driving straight
Right.
or 3 days of driving to get down there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we figured out Asheville is like 10 and a half or 11 hours or something.
It's that sweet spot.
Yeah. So we're like, we could do that. And it's like, what are the temperatures? It's like 65.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, perfect. Like,
Nice.
it's not 80s, but 65 feels like 80 right now because we're from, in Michigan.
Yep.
So we decided, I think it was just like a combination of those things. We also kind of had it on our radar because for a while, like we were kind of thinking about like if we had to live in another city, what city would we like potentially think about?
Mm-hmm.
And Asheville kind of like came up as an artistic city that has opportunity, but a lot of nature and mountains and hiking and things that like were a draw, but aren't like living in like Denver or,
Right,
like, I don't know, like a bigger city. So
Dallas or something.
Something that's super big, like a smaller city. I think it's a little smaller than Grand Rapids, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Not by much. It's very walkable too. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of tight.
That's
But
great.
yeah, I don't know. I think that's why we went, and then
That's
we were just
cool.
like, why not?
Yeah.
Let's just do it. So
That's sweet.
yeah. But getting back, it's definitely like a little like shell shocked, I feel like,
Mhm.
and still kind of transitioning from that.
Yeah.
And like I said, Amanda's starting her new job. We're also kind of trying to start to get like our a little bit of a routine going
Mm-hmm.
because we've been so routineless the last season.
Well, with Amanda's like work schedule and
School.
all of that, it's like it's hard to make you bow to whatever those priorities are because you have to, and there's seasons of that.
Yeah, and that's fine. But I was just like thinking, like I would get up early and like write every day and like have that, and then it was very like boom, 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 and like I've kind of strayed from that, like, and I've needed to flex. But I think it's now just like, okay, so now as a couple and as individuals, like, what do we need in our routine? What do we want to build into every day? What disciplines have we been missing out on and neglecting? I think we've been neglecting our, like our emotional health and spiritual health probably in the last season, if I'm being candid, just due to busyness and like getting started.
For sure.
So trying to like write that course and like think of this, like I keep using the word season, but I'm kind of seeing this as like season 2 for our marriage. As Amanda's finished, like she's been in school almost the whole time we've been married. Right. It's like she's done starting a new job.
It's a significant change.
That opens up some opportunities for me to be thinking about and
right.
Yeah, just kind of trying to figure out what that looks like with art, with music, with film, whatever that is.
While you were gone, I joined Planet Fitness.
Hey.
So speaking of routine and discipline, it's just been one of those things that it's like, I know how to work out. I know how to use the machines, but I've been neglecting my physical health.
Yeah.
Due to laziness, due to whatever. And I also like hadn't been sleeping super well where I would like just sleep. Like it's never been something that I've had to think about or even like worry about, but you get a few nights and like I don't have insomnia or like anything crazy, but there's just like when you have multiple nights in a row where it's like you wake up like 2 times or 3 times or whatever. And it's like, oh, I'm not sleeping as well as I used to. And I was like, well, it's probably because I'm not exercising and I'm just sitting at my computer editing all the time. So what can I do to change that? Yeah, exactly. And I coming off of like out of the season of school where I was like going to the gym somewhat like routinely. And that's the thing. It's like, I'm not out to hit like crazy PRs or like get swole or anything like that. It's like, I just want to maintain physical health. It's like Amanda said, like in her episode, like you either pay for your health now or you pay for it later. And I also sleep better. It's like, even if I just go to the gym even if it's like raining, or I have time in between meetings, or I get done with my last meeting just to go like run for 20 minutes.
Just get a quick sweat in.
Like, yeah, it's been really nice. And
Good.
I've also been going with another buddy. So having that accountability, not to like the nth degree, but just having someone else to be like,
to
hey,
go with.
yeah, it's like, oh, we can do this together. And
Yeah.
it's kind of nice. So
Good.
Planet Fitness isn't really anything to rage about necessarily, but as far as the gym goes, it's not like the Y or MVP.
If you guys see that guy at Planet Fitness who's setting off the grunt alarm, it's Cole.
The lunk alarm.
Lunk, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I would love to see that go off at some point. There's YouTube videos of people like setting it off on purpose, but
that's funny.
Judgment Free Zone.
Yeah.
We're not sponsored by Planet Fitness.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I think that I've told you this before, and I actually got this analogy from Mike Maines, to give credit where credit's due.
Shout out to Mike.
But he was saying that like he used the metaphor that like it feels like it's a loosely tied shoe, and it just needs to be cinched tight, you know. And I feel that over a lot of things in my life right now, where it's like things that I've been letting have some slack, and maybe rightly so, or needing to be so, and are ready to be kind of cinched tight again.
Sure.
And maybe that means cutting off a piece of slack, something that's unneeded, and you know. So in order to tie things tight, or what that means, I don't know. Just continuing to work through that.
Yeah.
So
That's
good.
good.
That's kind of been my spiritual cry. It feels a little bit like, yeah, I've felt a little uninspired and dry spiritually lately, just in my own personal walk. One thing that's been helpful has been this podcast for me. Just hearing from you, hearing from our guests, people like Adam and Josh and everybody else who've, just opened up a little bit, and it's really encouraging personally to like walk away from that.
That's what I've had a few conversations with people who have asked about the podcast, or even just friends that know that we do the podcast or whatever. And that's absolutely, like we've talked about before, like that's our spirit, is to, if it takes going first in that vulnerability, because then that fosters that, like, hey, like you're struggling with that too, or whatever. It's like, it's that weird's an interesting word to use, but it's all, you feel like weirdly comforted and like encouraged, even if you're like going through the trenches of something. If someone else comes along and is like, oh, here's the trench that like I'm walking through, whether it be the same thing or not, it's like, it is encouraging. I even going back through and like cutting the episodes and editing them is like really nice. Like Josh's that went live today is like, I was gleaming little bits and pieces that just completely go over my head because I'm in the conversation and thinking about something else. Yeah. But to like, it's almost like reading scripture or reading a book the second time.
To re-listen or
watch a movie the second time, you catch things that you don't. But it's been really encouraging to me too. And like we didn't have, I hope it's clear that you guys can see that we don't have an agenda for this episode. However, our heart is not to just put on a show, and our heart is to stay consistent. And I think that is, I mean, we've talked about that before on the show, being consistent spiritually for sure, but even correlating into some of the things I think that we're talking about going to the gym, whatever that is, spiritual, like being consistent in that. Like today, it's like, it's so weary and dull outside, and I feel unmotivated just by looking out the window. And it's like, however, we can still be consistent in what we're doing. Yeah. Even if it might seem like we're doing something poorly, to, still pound the pavement and still swing the hammer at like what's in front of us, doing the show, even when we don't know if this is going to be a stellar episode, quote unquote.
Yeah, guys, this episode sucks.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But showing up and doing the work and trying to be consistent through that, through the seasons, through the changes, trying to, I don't know, to take it into a spiritual analogy, like to still abide and to still, you know, move forward, I think is important.
Yeah. And I think like the season of reflection for me too, like where I'm trying to create some space for reflection, and I'm not somebody who really looks backwards a lot. I tend to just think about the next thing and what I could be doing better about the future, or like planning and getting ahead. But sometimes like, and that's great for execution. That's great for ideation. That's great for business, but it's bad for like mental health. It's bad for spiritual health.
We went, I wonder if you'll remember him, because we had a meeting a couple weeks ago at a coffee shop, and we talked about our top 5 strengths.
Yeah.
And I think one of your strongest ones that from you saying that I'm reminded of is, I think it's command. Has a lot of that, which, like you're saying, there's always the pros and cons. It's just like the Enneagram or anything else. Like there's always pros and cons of the strengths that we do have if they become to the point where they have their negative, like inverse effects of that. But yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, even just yesterday, and I'm an open book, but Amanda and I were talking, and I was unobservant and
out to lunch,
oblivious as I can be. Yeah, out to lunch. That's a good way to put it. And just talking through like our motivations and kind of being honest with one another. And I told her, I was like, I realized that my confidence and sureness in my own decisions and myself can sometimes alienate her from my life. Because like, as somebody who's my like co-pilot and like my partner, like there's not room for codependence. If I'm so sure of myself all the time and I just make decisions and they're not hard for me to make because it's clear what the right path is.
Right.
When am I asking her for her advice? When am I seeking like her input and like making space for that? And I was just kind of like repenting of that. I was like, hey, I'm sorry that I've made you feel that way. And she didn't even say that she was feeling that way. I just like I felt bad about it because I realized like the effects that that could have. And Amanda is like super smart and super she's actually very opinionated, but she's very gentle in a lot of ways. And so like if there's not space for that, then a lot of times like it's hard for her to express those things, or she doesn't know how to voice them. Yeah. So like, yeah, that's something that I've realized that, you know, is definitely a strength of mine. The fact that I can find a clear path forward when it seems complicated, or like strategize the best next thing to do, but it can be a negative when you're trying to like do life with somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
And, it's not all about efficiency, and it's not all about strategy. It's about abiding, and it's about relationship, you know.
That's been like a huge thing that I am currently walking through, or I guess about to start walking through. I am going to, it's kind of funny. I serve quite a bit at Berkeley on the worship side and the tech side of things. And there's been a transition in leadership at Berkeley on the worship and stuff like that. And been working closely with Logan through all of that. And I'm like, dude, like I'm here to help you on like whatever you need. And I love it. I love playing worship. I love running front of house. I love switching. Like I love filling that, because that's where my gifts are and that's where my skill set is. So to be able to use that on a Sunday is really awesome. But it's kind of funny. I got benched in like, not in a facetious way or like in a mean way at all. Logan is really awesome at calling out and caring for people even when they might not realize that they need it. And so he was like, dude, like, I just want you to like block off like 3 weeks in a row in March on Sunday and like, don't do anything. I was like, okay. Like initially it sounded great because I was like, oh, that sounds really awesome to attend and just receive. But then the more that I thought about it, the more I'm like, that's almost like really uncomfortable for me, because I very rarely have I had a Sunday like that where I'm not like doing something, and to just, it's almost like in,
You've been busy and you've been kind of like
Exactly.
hiding from your own.
well, there's a couple things. There's like, and this is, in all ministry, doing things for God does not equate to your spiritual health being in the green zone or like being good. Like, just because you do a bunch of things doesn't mean that you are even like super close to the Father. Like, not that that's not a, that's not everyone that does a lot.
They're
people,
not mutually exclusive.
Exactly. But that does exist. And even just like processing through that right now through this. But yeah, just being like, it's like I was saying, it's almost like when we get quiet before God and we're so used to not being quiet, and it's so uncomfortable, and then thoughts come and you're like, I don't want to think about that, or like this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, no, but that is the hard work that like needs to be done, like in our souls, in our faith, in our walk with Christ. Like, and it's not about becoming a better Christian, but it's, God might be wanting to say something to you, speak something into you that you aren't able to hear because you don't want to be uncomfortable and get quiet, or you're just too busy and covering up all of that. So that's, again, I want to be clear that Logan didn't, there was nothing bad that happened that's like, you need to take some time off of worship team. It was just like, and that was honestly like a prayer of like, I was on every Sunday for a couple months, I think, doing something. And again, I love it. I love doing that. And it wasn't even like, oh, this is a lot. Like, I feel like I'm about to get burned out or something. It was just like, Lord, like, if this is too much, I think I did start to like pray that prayer of like, God, like, if you want something to change here, you need to do that. And it was like shortly after starting to pray those prayers that Logan took that initiative. And it was almost like no question. It was like, hey, dude, like, this is something I was thinking about, but I want to care for you, and I want to make sure that we as a ministry are caring for you, which I greatly appreciated. I was like, sure. And also to take a step back and be like, these things function and still go on without me. I'm not that important, even though you can get into a position where it's like, I know how to do this, 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 and this, and this, and everything rests on my shoulders. Good luck. Like, but that's not the case. Like,
definitely. And I was actually going to say something along that lines of like, when you're serving, and you should be serving and using your gifts for God, you begin to place like your relationship and I guess you feel like you can only experience God through serving with your gifts, or like that you're wasting your time if you're not doing something. And maybe you do, and maybe you need to hear the opposite today. I don't know, whoever's listening, right?
For
maybe
sure.
you have gifts and you should be using them.
Right. Yeah.
But a lot of times when you are serving every Sunday, it's like that becomes your church experience. And then when you aren't, you're like, I don't know how to experience God anymore. I don't know how to approach him. I don't know how to approach him as a citizen. Like that's like as a citizen of his kingdom, as well as a worker in his kingdom. It's like, and this isn't a perfect analogy, but it's like when you have a work relationship with somebody, like, and then you see them outside of work and you're like, I don't know what to talk about.
Yeah. You just end up talking shop for an hour.
It's like I think we tend to compartmentalize God, and I'm speaking from experience here.
That's what humans are good at, is putting things in buckets and categories.
Like, oh, I do this and this is how I experience God. And again, serving is definitely not something that I'm trying to discourage people from. But regular breaks from serving is definitely in line with Sabbath, in line with, it's that same thing. Like, you're putting a trust in God to be God.
Right.
For his church to continue to move on and to realize I'm not that important. I'm invited into this.
Yes, I'm not that important, and God does not value me based on everything that I do for him. I'm not his employee.
It becomes a gift again, right? It
Right.
becomes like, Lord, I want to give this to you because I can,
Right.
not because I need to, because the church will stop moving.
Yep.
You know, I think that's a great posture.
So I'm going to be learning that this next month because I played yesterday, but now I have 3 Sundays in a row where I don't have to do anything. So I'm excited. I'm nervous. But really the discipline, like sanctification side of me that loves all of that is excited for what's going to come out like on the other side and getting uncomfortable, you know?
Well, that actually shows spiritual maturity, I think, because you're looking forward to the Lord shaping you through your own discomfort, which is like a hard thing to kind of get, you know, I know you're not excited for the discomfort, but
for sure.
But you recognize that the Lord's work is bigger than your discomfort. And
I think it's like, yeah, absolutely. I think to further that, it's like the purification process that's like talked about in scripture of like gold or something, like being put into a furnace where like, it's kind of funny that this furnace is literally like being stripped back and it's not like adding more. It's actually taking things off of my plate.
Yeah.
That is putting me in the crucible.
Sometimes that's harder.
Right. Exactly.
For me, for sure.
I think for both of us, like we're both that like achiever.
Yeah.
Let's, focus on efficiency. Let's figure out how to make everything be better and streamlined
Take
and
advantage
faster
of opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to go the opposite way, but feel just as uncomfortable, if not more uncomfortable, as opposed to, adding more things or trying to do that. It's like, this is almost, and it is harder than going the other direction, trying to quiet my soul, quiet my spirit, and just receive from the Father and work towards chipping away at that idea of I am my work. I am valued because of this output that I have, or this gift or talent or skill set. That's not what the Father says. But having that go from head to heart is a process.
I think,
and uncomfy.
Yeah. I think another thought with that is like, if your identity is rooted in God through like the secret place and like your personal relationship with God, and then going to church is more of an outward, like communal experience, then that doesn't feel as shaky.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like where your foundation is like nothing's changing and you're like, and I'm speaking to myself again, trying to restart my spiritual habits. You're so much more secure in yourself.
Yeah.
When you're like, the next day I'm going to get up and I'm going to spend time with like the Lord, and I'm going to renew my mind, and I'm going to,
focus on these truths.
Right. And I know that that's like my values found in my like relationship with God in that way.
Yeah.
Everything else is just bonus, and then when you're like going to church, it's just like a little more open handed. And I think that I tend to, if I'm not in the secret place and I'm only serving and I'm only like being busy in that way, then when that's stripped away, you're like, oh no, like what am I going to do with the Lord? Like what, like where's my relationship with him? And like, I don't know what your prayer life has been like, but like, I think that's what my thought is like, I've had experiences similar where like, okay, how am I going to experience God now? Like, and then I realized like, oh, like it should be rooted in my one-on-one relationship with him.
It starts back here.
Yeah. And then everything else just builds. And the church obviously like plays into like how you relate to God and like learning and growing as a believer, but it's not like the church isn't even like God, right? Like the church is a way to.
Well, the Christian life isn't for Sunday. It's for Monday through Saturday. But yeah, it's honestly like, I think where my fear kind of comes from is honestly through, I think, other people looking at me and being like, why isn't he up there? Like, what's going on? Like,
is he not good enough?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, because my quiet time has been decent. I mean, I say that with the business mindset of like, could always be better. But like, I have been spending, even yesterday, like Sunday, like I was reading and just got time to like journal at a coffee shop that I've like never been to. And I like praise the Lord for noise cancellation, because I like put my AirPods in and turn on noise cancellation, and then I put a pad in the background and just listen.
The world disappears.
I listened to an E flat pad for like an hour and just like journaled on like a super low volume. But like that was like super good, and I honestly feel rested from that yesterday. I wish I had more time. I wish it wasn't just a half a day. I wish it was the full day. I was able to do that and something else that was, restful. But I think, coming back, it's like I'm looking at, wrestling through that fear of man more of than fear of God, of like again, I think it comes back to value and identity again, just being vulnerable, of like working through that of, is my identity in the things that I'm doing at Berkeley? Is my identity in the videos that I produce and the content and my work, right? That culture,
the lead lines
so
that
much.
You're playing.
Exactly. Yeah. And my tone and my pedals and all of that. And it's like, or how good the mix sounds, or receiving compliments on how stuff sounds too. And that bleeds into it. But wrestling through that more so than just like the truths of I'm loved before all of that, so
that's good. That's good.
It's going to be the journey, and it's continual, and it's not like I'm going to figure it out in these 3 weeks and then I'm on to the next thing.
Obviously, guys, we'll report back in our 3-step takeaway from this experience.
Check the show notes for the bullet points on how to.
That's amazing. No, I hear you, man. I'm excited to see what comes of that.
I'll be sure to share. We have big plans for the podcast, but it sounds like we're both hitting the pavement on spiritual disciplines.
Trying to.
Of course. And getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
But also, I love that. Like, I think both, and not to hype ourselves up, but it sounds like, that is the Holy Spirit doing its job of conviction and being like, putting his finger on something and being like, that's not how I want that to be for you.
Yeah.
And let's work on changing that.
I think that's exactly what it is. It's conviction of neglect, right? Like that's the word I used in realization of like neglect, not in like a way that I didn't want to do it. It's just like I haven't maintained it. It's like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that sense of like
continuing to constantly.
I haven't changed the strings on my guitar.
Yeah, for sure.
That where it's like,
for sure.
I've been using my guitar, like
the gym shoes have been in the closet for a couple months or whatever.
Yeah. So I think it's just like back to those basics, back to the disciplines, and I'm feeling again, things will be like changing and like growing and figuring out how to do life. Like there's no real blueprint,
right?
For like, I think what, we're trying to like do in general. I feel that way for sure about like my life as a whole, and obviously work is a part of that for me, but even in just thinking about personal life and like work combined, because like I guess for me, like my work is pretty tied to like my personal life because of what it is. It's not a 9 to 5 that I just
clock gears in your basement.
Yeah, it's all around me, and so like just trying to really navigate what excites me, what's right for me, what's right for Amanda, what's right for our future. It's been good, but it's tough
for sure.
I'm definitely feeling the weight of it.
Yeah.
So,
well, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. It's like that idea, which I've said before, and it doesn't come from me. It comes from either John Mark or someone else. But the devil, the enemy, can't make you sin. He'll just make you busy, and equating that to just as bad, if not worse, because then you can, I almost feel like in a way that's worse because it prolongs.
You don't have time to like repent or
exactly
have relationships.
Well, and I feel like it creates such a gap that can go on for so long until you realize that you thought you were here and you're like way over here,
Well, like, Screw Tape Letters, like the road to hell, like being soft underfoot and like gradual, like not steep drop off. It's just like easy. It's an easy decline into hell instead of like something that we notice, because if you notice, then you'll do something about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the same idea where like we get so comfortable, so busy that you go so long without talking to God. You go so long without, like centering your heart and your mind. And then when bad things happen, you realize, oh, I'm not even on the foundation I thought it was, you don't know where to start, or you're embarrassed and you're too deep. And then there's shame, and there's like all of these things that prevent you from actual relationship and repentance. And
I think there's also like something to be said as well about just having being self-analytical. And again, like that's in step with the Holy Spirit convicting you, right? But having a spirit of looking back and going even back through your own story or testimony or just your life in general, but being able to be critical, not to the degree where it becomes unhealthy, which is what I struggle with, or like being super hard on yourself, but being analytical enough and taking 30 minutes, 15 minutes to just pause and be like, what was this day like? What was this week like? What was this month like? Where am I? What's going on?
reflecting.
I think that's something that doesn't come naturally to everyone.
Well, there's not time. Like you were saying, I feel like a lot of that just has to do with like schedule and like like a lot of us, everybody's working hard. I feel like most people have a job that's demanding, and then they have a home life they want to do it all. They want to, you got to go out after you come home, and or you got to get in workout, or you got to maintain your house, or you got to have kids, or you
there's always one more thing to do.
Yeah. It's really tough to carve out that time to reflect and to rest and to think about the past.
And that's I like what you said with that analogy to hell. Like, that's comfy. So if you haven't been uncomfortable in a while, maybe that's a sign to just start thinking about some
It's like
things,
denial in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like avoidance of a way to avoid is just to be a busybody.
Avoidance of the path of Jesus,
and of like things are wrong in your life you just don't want to face. Like, I feel like deep down, a lot of us know where our weaknesses are, but we want to lie to ourselves and lie to others and put on this image that we have it all together.
Put the mask on. Yeah.
That's what,
it's good.
Yeah. Amanda and I went to, Ada Bible yesterday, and their service was on honesty. Not only to like the body, to like other Christians, but to God, and like how we try to put on these false images that we have it all together. Whereas like conversations about our struggles should be more like candid and more normal than they are. Like, everyone just wants to talk about like how good their life is or what's going well. And of course, negativity can be a thing too, but vulnerability and honesty, right? Like that, not only looking in the mirror and saying like, where can I be improving? Where am I at right now? Which can be discouraging, because like we have these expectations for ourselves to be a superhero.
Yeah.
Everybody views himself as the hero of the story, and like those things, like taking a step back and Sabbathing and like writing our minds help us to realize that we're not the hero of the story at all. We're just a piece of this thing. And like,
we aren't as important as we think we are.
Yeah. It's so freeing because you're not the protagonist. You're just a supporting character in it,
Yeah.
And, that's a tough thing to swallow because we are prideful. We want to lie.
That's a humble position.
It's tough.
Getting low and being like, this can excel more than me. Like, I can put this ahead of myself for the goodwill of that person, God's kingdom, like whatever.
Well, you even look at Jesus, and like, he literally is the protagonist, but he doesn't assume himself to be, which is like the humility. And there's times where he's of course claiming to be God, and like rightly so, and getting the glory he deserves. And but you look at like how he interacts with people, and he always makes them feel more important than himself.
Right. Yeah.
When was Jesus trying to make himself feel more important than the person he was talking to?
metaphorically putting that person on his shoulders.
Even when he's directly asked, like by who was it? Was it Pilate? Who's like, are you you claiming to be?
Yeah,
he's
for
like,
sure.
He's like,
if
that's who people say that I am, or something like that, you know, like, it's like, really, would we be in that position? We'd be like, yeah, I am, and you should release me, and I am like the best, right? But like, the one who's gone before us and goes before us has modeled like the mindset of love, and, you know, thinking of like, love is patient, it's kind, it's never self-serving, it's slow to anger. Like those, I think all of that narrative like just piles into this conversation, because like, I don't know, I think of that and it's like so opposite of Jesus to be like, he you know, and it also claims no man can come to the Father but by me. And rightly so. There's times like that he is honest. He's not like lying about who he is in his position. But he models humility and love and in a way that's we're incapable of fully, but like we are capable of to a degree, because we have the Spirit of God living in us, which is the same Spirit who raised him from the dead. So like, I don't know. I think
that's really good.
I don't know. That's where my brain goes to.
I'm almost out of coffee. Are you done? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeet.
Done.
There's these will just be like a bunch of little like closing seeds that you were making me think of, but in God Has a Name, talking about how much do we normalize our sin and not realize how much that actually grieves the Father. For one, that's something that I'm working through right now. That's kind of like on the forefront of my mind of like, how have I normalized that sin in my life? There was another thought that I had, but
it's tough to not normalize your sin and give yourself grace. That's tough.
Yeah. Yep. So, but yeah, it's, that's a challenging thought too. Even just with culture and how culture is and the things that we see every day. I'm just like, I'll see something and be like, what?
It's easy
Why?
It's easy to judge it, right? And it's like, and there's a difference between like discerning right and wrong and judging and having a judgmental mentality. Cause like, we're not like, even Jesus didn't come to the world to condemn the world. He came to save it.
Yeah. Oh, I remember what I was going to say is another thing along that line is it's more complicated. And this is just a wrap up thought, but in God Has a Name, talking about how we look at Jesus as just being loving and all encompassing and like soft and cute,
universal, and
not like angry and coming with judgment. And there's a super good line that either John Mark or it came from someone that he studied, is there's a very fine line between tolerance and apathy when looking at sin. Because how many times do we because it gets to the point of like, just giving grace and mercy and not being salt, I think, kind of coming at that where it's like, you're forgiven, like, yes, however, comma, right? Like, again, like, are we normalizing that sin by just giving a green pass to that? Or are we working to combat that sin and ask the questions and dig a little bit deeper as to how this person got, like, whatever, like, all in the name of love and in the name of sharpening, right? And not being judgmental. Because I think there's a difference there. But those are just all thoughts in God Has a Name that kind of surfaced as you were talking. Like,
definitely
the difference between tolerant and being tolerant and being apathetic towards, like, I think about coming back to like an example of just like a father and a son. Like, John Mark talks about this in his relationship with his kids at the end of the book of like, he wants them, like he used this line of like, God doesn't wink at sin. Like, he doesn't just like, oh, like sweep it under the rug. Like you're forgiven, like in my son's, like all of that, where like he's looking at his kids and it's like, if his kids mess up, like, yes, there's grace and there's love there, but he's also, it's Hebrews. It's like, do you think that, you won't be disciplined as one of God's kids like you should expect to be, because a good father would discipline their kids, because the father doesn't want their kids to continue in that. God wants to eradicate sin, and that can't exist.
And he talks about like no sin will go unpunished.
Right.
Like the righteous will not go or the unrighteous will not go unpunished, which is like this is a massive juxtaposition and longer conversation, but all of these things are really encouraging to me, just facing the week, honestly. And hopefully you guys feel the same way. Of course, like this one was a little less structured, and the Spirit brought us to where we are.
If you're here, we greatly appreciate you. Thanks for sticking around.
And we really are kind of doing this with you guys, and we're again like in the trenches and trying to show up and be open-hearted and open-minded towards what the Lord is doing.
I love this because I feel like I was a little nervous going into this, because I was like, what are we going to talk? Like, I literally have nothing to talk about, but I love that because this is the epitome of this show.
This is like a stereotypical, like, we're just going to get coffee and talk.
Exactly.
And there's no agenda.
And this is what the show is based around. So,
yeah. So thank you guys for making it this far. We're really stoked for the future of this thing, to do it with you guys and for your support.
Yeah.
Thank you to Josh at Local Legend Recording for letting us record here. Big thanks to Steven at Quickwater Coffee Roasters, as always.
We're drinking Tanzania today. I was talking to Steven about this because I have loved this. So I learned. So if you are done with this episode and you don't want any coffee nerd stuff, you can click away. But I was talking to Steven, and I recently learned from reading a book, a coffee table book on like the origins of coffee at Quickwater, that like what pea berry is. So normally coffee is a fruit, and the beans inside of it, usually there's two. And if you look at coffee beans, there's like a rounded side and then there's a flat side, and they grow flat side to flat side, and then it's round on the outside of the fruit. Well, pea berry is completely round. So instead of there being two beans inside of the fruit, it's just one, and it's completely round. However, that translates to more sweetness in the cup than a standard coffee bean. And this is a pea berry from Tanzania, like I said. So it was just cool. And I was talking to Steven, he was like, yeah, like the more that I've tasted and tried stuff, the more I found that I really do like pea berry coffee because of that natural sweetness. It's balanced, like it's really nice.
Super good. And the coffee is even all the way through the cup. Like I feel like a lot of times when there's a light roast that traditionally, like I didn't like a light roast because it changed so much. Like the first half of the cup was great, and then the bottom was like acidic and not good. This stuff is so even all the way through the cup. So.
And I think part of that is due to air roasting too, which is cool. I got to go in and just shoot a bunch of B-roll of Steven air roasting, and I actually got to watch the process. So
that's awesome.
I might cut together a little thing and put that out so you guys can see it. But it's cool. It's really interesting to see that process happen, and to see the
amazing
beans go in green and then come out like beautiful chocolatey golden brown.
Thank you, Steven and Quickwater Coffee. Shout out Colony House, Cannonballers album. That's my pick for record time.
There you go.
Yeah, it's sweet. Better Live, as we were talking about.
Right.
The band's...
is it Live in Dallas? Album is super good.
Yeah, that's from their Looking for Some Light tour, I think.
Yeah.
But this is like kind of a different flavor, but still the same band. And like if you spend some more time with it, I found that like with honestly both of their albums, I was like a little bit like not impressed the first time I listened to it, because it was different than like the album before.
Sure. Changing sound as a band.
Yeah, they're just exploring and like having fun. And then like as I sat with them, the more I appreciated it.
Right. I also have a record, Random Access Memories by Daft Punk. It's their latest album and the last album that they produced. For those of you that don't know, Daft Punk is like my all-time favorite band, duo, artist, whatever. And they just released, my sister actually sent it to me. She got an email. I think she's on like a new music from like Pitchfork or something, but she sent it to me and I instantly pre-ordered it. It is a 10th because Random Access Memories came out in 2013. They're doing a 10-year anniversary edition with 9 new unreleased tracks and like studio outtakes and demos.
So it's like a deluxe.
And it's a deluxe, and I ordered it on vinyl, so it's 3 discs.
That's sweet.
So I'm pumped. It doesn't ship until May.
Was it $80?
It was $50 actually.
That's pretty good.
I was very surprised. I saw it going for other places at like $80-$90.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for that.
That's sweet.
So go listen to Random Access Memories. I was listening to that yesterday. There's some great stuff on there. And I think it's Thomas, one of the members of Daft Punk. They're like, he is releasing a bunch of like classical symphonic music. Like they're like kind of geniuses when it comes to music in general, but he has some classical symphonic stuff that I've been listening to.
That's good.
And he's continuing to release that. So Colony House, Daft Punk.
We'll add them to the playlist. 2023 or season 2 record
Season 2.
time playlist UIG
It's in
on
the
Spotify.
show notes. Yeah.
In the show notes. Feel free if you made it this far, you've weathered the storm with us to
Literally, it's raining outside.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Hey-o.
What's up, Josh?
What up, dude?
Josh at Local Legend, everybody.
Hey.
Feel free to drop us a follow and a like wherever you're consuming this podcast. It helps us a lot, helps new people find us. And if you enjoyed the show, leave us a 5-star rating. That really helps us grow. We're still strategizing, trying to figure out a sustainable way to grow the podcast. And honestly, we prefer it to be organic. So if you guys really like it, then feel free to share it with some friends and
share it. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. For those of you listening, we are on YouTube and on Spotify. Turn on your little video player so you can actually see us if you want to see our faces.
Or if you prefer to just listen, yeah. So yeah, thank you guys for everything so far. We're stoked for the next couple of podcasts. We're going to have some big plans and some awesome guests, and looking forward to it. See ya.